Hey, good morning, Shabbat Shalom. I also want to wish Mazel Tov to Dasi and her family. Our president and your tutor, Joyce Weingarten, just kept saying how amazing you are, and you were actually beyond that. And that was really, your words were very wise, and your chanting was just beautiful. So it's just wonderful to be able to share this moment with you. So I got back a couple days ago from an incredible trip to Israel. It was the Motor City Mission that was sponsored by Federation. And I was very proud that Adat Shalom actually had one of the largest representations on the trip. And before I left, people asked me to bring back the weather from Israel, and I did. It actually rained there pretty much the entire time, which was actually really great for Israel. They did not have a lot of rain this year, and so they were very, very happy about it. And I just want to share a little bit about the trip, some of the more powerful things that I experienced. Our very last night, we had dinner at the base for Mishmar HaGavul, the Border Patrol, the people who are responsible for keeping Israel's borders safe. Now, these are people not old enough to drive, barely, except they can drive a tank. Not a car. These are young people, younger than any of our children, my own and Ruth, our children, and they are protecting us. And what was amazing is that they were of every color, ethnicity, background, every social sphere of Israel, and they were all represented there. It was very powerful. I went to a place called Susan's House. This was started by a woman who noticed that there were a lot of Israeli teens just in danger, and mostly in danger at home, in danger in their environments, people who were very vulnerable, coming from very difficult backgrounds, people who had absolutely no self-esteem or feelings of self-worth. And at Beit Susan, they learned how to make jewelry, they learned how to make pottery, and they sold them there as well, and they received a salary. And the incredible amount of self-esteem that they experienced was absolutely redemptive. They were people who were lost to Israeli society, who at the age of 18 could go into the army, who could go to college. And one of the alumni of the program came in, and she said that when she was 16 years old, she was lost. Her family was abusive. They were neglectful. They were just not there. And she had nothing. She wound up with a terrible boyfriend. And coming to Susan's house, she really found herself, and she really turned herself into something. But when the day came to go to the army, in Israel, your first day in the army, your entire family shows up, and you spend the day together, and they bring gifts, and it's a time of transition. It's a time that you know that you are loved. And this woman showed up, and she had no family whatsoever. She was there absolutely alone, so she thought. There's a tap on her shoulder, and she turned around, and it's all the other kids from Susan's house. And they brought her gifts, and they brought her support, and they spent the entire time with her. And that was just such a powerful thing. And now she's 30 years old. She has a master's in social work, and she's helping other people as well. We were at Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Memorial Center in Israel. And because my father was a survivor, I was asked to put a wreath and to put a stone in the memorial hall where they had actually brought ashes of the victims from Poland into Yad Vashem as a memorial. And I was very honored to do this, but I didn't realize that those were the ashes of those who had been murdered. And as I'm walking there and I'm putting the stone, I'm thinking maybe these are my grandparents. And I absolutely bent over and just started crying convulsively. I couldn't breathe, and this was in front of about 150 people. And all I could think about is that if there had been an Israel in the 30s, there wouldn't be a Yad Vashem in the 21st century. But one of the most amazing things I saw was something called Galmobile. Gal means a wave of water. This is a mobile desalination vehicle. It looks like someone stole a cart off a Boca Raton golf course, and turned it into a water purifier. It's just a cart, and it can purify water that's brackish, water that's been poisoned, water that is seawater, and within half an hour it can start putting out pure water and can make tens of thousands of gallons of water at a time. And it's very powerful that it's portable, because one example is that if you have a place with high tide and low tide, you can't build a desalination center. You need to be able to move the vehicle. These were used in Turkey during the earthquake, where all the water had been contaminated. They were able to get fresh water. These are being used in countries all over the world that won't even recognize Israel's existence, but they called and they said, look, can you send us one of those vehicles? You know, we promise not to say anything. It was amazing. It was an absolutely brilliant piece of technology, but it also made me realize that in that piece of technology is the challenge that Israel is having today. Israel is going through a crisis for the first time in its history that can't be solved by technology, by weapons, by surveillance, by an app, by a computer program. Israel is going through a crisis of what does it mean to be Israeli. It is going through a moral crisis, not a technological crisis. And it's a very difficult situation. Ruth and I lived in Israel during the first Intifada. We'd been there at times where rockets were falling. I've talked to friends and family in Israel for decades where there's been crisis, terrorist attacks. And I always ask, how are you doing? And they say, fine. Really, you realize there's a missile in your backyard. Like, yeah, we're going to turn it into a coffee table. No worries. This is the first time I've ever talked to Israelis, including my own family there, who said they're worried. They're worried about the future of the country. They're worried about whether the country is going to split apart. For an Israeli to say that they're worried, to me, was transformational. I'd never heard that before. And it's because it's not a crisis from the outside, it's a crisis from the inside. What does it mean to be Jewish, to be democratic? What does it mean for religion to be protected, but what does it mean to be protected from religion? How do you guarantee the rights of everyone? And how do you know that the smartest and best people are making these decisions? And when we were there were a lot of protests and demonstrations, which, by the way, you're allowed to do in a democratic state, as long as it isn't violent. This isn't about left wing versus right wing. This isn't about progressives versus the far right. Israel doesn't have a left. The protests are coming from the center. They're coming from people who served in the IDF. They're coming from heads of corporation. They are coming from people who risked their lives for the country. They're the ones who say they're worried. These aren't the fringes. This is the center, the heart of Israeli democracy, of Israeli economy, who said they're worried, not about change. Their changes have to be made. Right? The government's a mess, the Supreme Court's a mess, everything's a mess. It's how change is being made and who is making it, and whether change is coming from a place of compassion and democracy and freedom and love for others, or is it coming from a place of ego and power and selflessness? It's not the change, it's the how it's happening. And that's the part that's very concerning. When former heads of the IDF saying they're concerned, start being concerned. But I'm hoping that this is the beginning of a deep, powerful moral conversation among Israelis, and Israelis on the trip begged Americans to say something. Right? Not to tell them what to do, and not to solve this politically, and not to tell them what the policies are, but out of love to demand that Israel fulfill its destination, that it be an Orla Goyim, that it be a light to the nations, that it stands for something even in difficult times. One of the words that was used very often when we were there was the word hitorer. Hitorer means to lift yourself up, to awaken yourself. And we sing this every Friday night. It was written in Sfat, in northern Israel, where I was last week, which is the homeland of Jewish mysticism, where Kabbalat Shabbat, the prayers we sing every Friday night, were written. And it says, Hit ori, kiva ori, kumi ori. Wake yourself up, rise up, find the light in yourself and find the light in the world. The people who are concerned about what's happening in Israel are coming at it from a place of love and not a place of destruction. They are not coming at it as a place of hate. They are coming from a sense of bringing light to the world, of rising up, but lifting up. Hit ori, wake up your soul and remind yourself that we are not here to hate, but we are here to bring to the world a sense of moral possibility, even in a world that feels less and less moral. We cannot become the hatred in the world, even if that hatred is against us sometimes. The people who are protesting in Israel are not trying to tear Israel down. They are not trying to destroy the economy. They are not trying to make it un-Jewish. They are trying to make it the best version of itself, and more people from every aspect of Israeli life are joining them. I'm not telling people what to do. I don't vote there. I don't risk my life there. I don't send my children into battle. But the people who went into battle, the people who are sending their children into the army, they say that Israel has to start being a moral force for the world, even more than it has been. This has to be a time of awakening for all of us, a time of kindness and compassion. God's glory is ultimately only revealed when we love all of creation the way that God does. That's when Kabbalat Shabbat, Kavod Adonai Alayach Nigla, the glory of God is revealed through us when we act with kindness and compassion. Everything I am saying about Israel is out of love. I have led many teen trips to Israel, and you have to know I love Israel if I took teen trips there. Oh my God, I am still getting over. I mean, you should send your kids, it's awesome. But for the staff. But I wanted them to experience it. I've led four trips to Israel since I've been at Adat Shalom. I'm hoping to get you all signed up for 2025, which hopefully will be the next time. I've led March of the Living through Poland and then to Israel. Everything I say about Israel is out of love, but it's not love if you only say everything is okay. You would never do that with a family member you were worried about. You would never see a family member who was heading toward a dangerous path and say, yeah, go ahead. That's how I share my love with you. Just do whatever you want. What I say is out of love, and it's echoing, I think, what most Israelis believe. Israel has so much that is great about it. It has done so much for the world. It's done so much for the Jewish people. The world needs Israel, and it needs Israel to be the best version of itself. And I pray for its continual awakening. Shabbat Shalom.